Good afternoon, all, and welcome to another edition of the Sal Greco Show, and I'm your host, Sal Greco. Thank you all for tuning in. Please, if you can, if you're watching us on the Finest Unfiltered network on YouTube, please hit that like, share, subscribe button, hit that notification button as well. If you're watching us on Rumble, please hit that like button, hit that Rumble button. And if you're watching us streaming live on X right now, please hit that like button and also share this out. Not only to all your friends, but some of your friends that you know and you recognize are in that low information bubble. This is a fact-based analysis show where we try to inform all the masses. So with that being said, you know, there's still a lot going on, and today's going to be a very interesting show. How we're going to break down this NYPD kangaroo court, or we're going to tie a lot of things in. And this is something that Marlon has been working on for a little bit. So before I have him on, I figure I'd touch up on a few things in the news that I value as being important here. First of all, yesterday we learned we now know what the ballot for the New York City mayor's race is going to look like. So you see that ballot there, okay? Notice Eric Adams at the very end and Andrew Cuomo on the bottom with two people who are not even really running, and that's Jim Walden and Joseph Fernandez. So what I like to point out here is that third box, which is Irene Estrada. The Conservative Party is a disgrace, okay? In this instance, Curtis Sleever would have had 3 boxes on the first line alone. That would have been extremely important. But just looking at this, I remember a lot of you are very well informed that are watching the show, but New York City is full of low information people and voters, more, you know, to get down to the point. And the first 2 boxes are all people really going to look at. They're going to see Curtis and Mamdani. If they have to start to look and dig and say, where's Eric Adams and where's Cuomo? It's an exercise in frustration for them. This has been going on for many years. So the positioning on the ballot is very good, I'd say, for Curtis. Again, because 2 major parties, the Democrat, Republican Party, always show up 1 and 2 on a ballot. And then you look to get extra boxes on that first line. The problem here, of course, is Curtis does have 2 boxes, right? But he should have had that conservative line. That party's a disgrace. It's a small little party. They're a non-factor, but they take up space on a ballot. That's a problem because, again, in New York City, it's full of low information people. They're very much going to vote on name recognition. They also look at pieces of paper and could only see past a certain point. I mean, you know, your attention span is about 9 seconds. So you expect that when they see a ballot, every box, the more boxes you have on that first line with one person's name on it, the chances of being successful go up. So I know Mamdani has 2 boxes. So does Curtis. He should have had 3. We could thank the Conservative Party with, you know, a round of applause to how great you are and how smart you are over there in New York City. You are part of the problem. And that's why Republicans don't win, because you have all this infighting and clout chasing and disgraceful antics behind the scenes. So that looks very good. It doesn't look good for Cuomo or Eric Adams. Adams being the last name, Cuomo being the name on the bottom. So I expect, again, people are going to be surprised when you see what happens in this election, because it's not 45% that Mamdani's up by. And there's a lot of things going on now. I just saw something about him not being registering for selective service, but he technically did. He has to do it within the first 18 to 25 years of being alive on this earth and being a U.S. citizen. So there's a lot going on. Again, I would just stick to policies, records. That's what matters. People are going to vote on that. So, again, great job by Curtis getting on not only the ballot with 2 boxes, but ending up almost back-to-back on there with Mamdani, who also has 2 boxes. And Eric Adams, who God knows, you know, how many votes he's really going to get. And then Cuomo on the second line with two people that are not a non-factor. They're a non-factor in the race. So good. Kudos to Curtis. Then I have a video of a 15-year-old by freedomnews.tv. So this 15-year-old got shot, okay, in some kind of gangbanger violence. So let's roll this out of him going to the ambulance. They're bringing him to the ambulance. What you're seeing here is the glorification of a young mind being indoctrinated into gangbanger, lifestyle. Okay. He was also in handcuffs. And it's funny because right there you see Raul Stevenson, Mr. Sobro Gardens and Consofrito party guy himself, good friends of a mob associate. Somehow he keeps his job, though. He's there, on the scene and, doing what a chief's supposed to do. Apparently he's not a coward in that instance, but he's been a coward on other instances. Maybe he's got a party to go to after this. But they're glorifying this 15-year-old being shot and gangbanger violence. And he's handcuffed, too, so I believe he's being treated like a juvenile. That just shows you what's wrong with society. You glorify something like this. And, like Chronicles of the Collapse is saying, the future of America. That is your future, Yeah, police said the officers saw an 18-year-old man firing shots and returned fire before starting a foot chase. The officer and his partner eventually took two people into custody on East 123rd Street. One of the suspects, a 15-year-old, was shot in the left leg and was taken to Harlem Hospital. So basically, hooliganism is being glorified. So if you're a hooligan, that's good. If you're 15 years old, you're starting out your life and you're gangbanging in the street, thug life, that's what needs to be glorified, right? That's the problem with society today. That's the problem with society today. What can I say? Such a shame. It's good to see Chief Stevenson doing something other than partying. So the next thing that happened is there was a vicious rape that occurred in the Bronx. Vicious, okay? Man rapes woman on Bronx Street, gives her his phone number, leading to his arrest at NYPD. So this is a little short article here where a 32-year-old woman was raped on the street in the Bronx by an ex-con who calls himself Romeo, who gave her his cell phone, a clue that led to his arrest. The attacker's name is Nicholas DeJesus, 33, was charged with rape, sex abuse, assault, and harassment. He allegedly came up behind a woman at 5:45 a.m. Tuesday by the Kingsbridge Stop and Shop on Broadway near West 234th Street. Give it to me, the victim quoted DeJesus, demanding as he grabbed her around the neck, or I'll kill you. Then he yanked down her shorts and raped her, police said, and walked with her south on Broadway. At that point, DeJesus said he wanted to have sex with her again, but she ran into a nearby Dunkin' Donuts, and DeJesus ran down West 130th Street, police said. And, of course, the Dunkin' Donuts worker called 911. This is really disturbing. But what matters here is she told the police the attacker, a stranger, she doesn't know this guy, said his name was Romeo and that he gave her the clothes she was wearing when police responded, a black polo sweatshirt and black tank top. The clothing, police said, is being processed for DNA evidence. DeJesus also gave the victim his cell phone number A number that appears on a quality of life summons issued to the suspect on September 6th, police said. The summons enabled police to track down the Jesus at his Bronx residence 5 miles north of the crime scene, police said. The Jesus was paroled on July 25th after serving more than 11 years for a Queens robbery conviction. Okay? That, okay, is how you correctly apply broken windows. Why? Whatever that quality of life summons is, the reason you write those is you're trying to stop the small crimes before they become big crimes. Because he was stopped and he had a summons, that now led to this heinous act that he did. How he got caught was the phone number. He gave a phone number on his C summons or quality of life summons. I don't know if they call it these days. And that's why he was picked up. So broken windows led to a major arrest. And unfortunately, it's a great job by the NYPD, but this is a horrendous job by the Eric Adams administration where violent crime continues to skyrocket. I know there was a mayoral report. They keep touting crime is down. How is crime down? Women are getting raped at the crack of dawn in New York City. Rapes are up like exponentially. It's ridiculous. Okay? And Joe Ramirez says, great job by the officer that wrote the summons. You're right. You know, somebody says, come on, man, nobody pronounces the Jesus like that. Is it De Jesus? I don't know. It's one or the other. Who knows? Who cares? The guy's a pervert, and he should be in prison. Guy does stuff like that. Special Hagen says, can you imagine a bunch of old men without any job skills and who have never lived out of a penal institution? It will affect us all. That's for that other incident. But in this incident with the rape, that's insane, right? That continues to happen in New York City, by the way. If you're a female and you keep, you're walking around in the street in New York City, you don't feel safe because you never know when some maniac like this is going to come try to invade your space or worse. So kudos to the NYPD, especially that officer that wrote that summons. Broken windows does work. When it's applied correctly, you have to almost precision policing, I like to call it. Don't do things for numbers. Don't do things to try to impress your supervisors. When you see something, do something. That's broken windows. Don't worry, but don't go, every little thing you see, you start writing numbers to just try to justify either your existence or you're looking to go to a specialty unit. But that, in that instance, that just saved the day. So kudos is to that. So Mara Cohen says the Bronx is going to drop the case. More than likely, you're right. You're right. If they probably will drop the case. Special Hagen says you have to be aware of your surroundings at all time. The guy giving her his number is insane. Now I got to say this, Special Hagen. Where have you seen this kind of brazen criminality? He gives her his phone number before he's about to do what he's going to do. That's crazy. And last but not least, before we get to Marlon, Tish James, the Attorney General, is in the news. So federal probe into Trump foe Letitia James hits a standstill, law enforcement officials say. James, the New York Attorney General, faces allegations of mortgage fraud by the Trump administration. She has denied any wrongdoing. And this was from NBC. So what's going on here is grand jury is hitting a little bit of a schneid here and a stop because the charge of mortgage fraud, although, listen, and I had Sam Antar on and Joe Gilbert on, they're very good. The problem is in the law enforcement community, and I've echoed this 1,000 times, those are add-on charges to anything else you may incur, whether what kind of crimes we're looking at. Now, Tish James, she's an arch criminal. She's been doing that for quite a while, but many politicians have. Many. Kind of like the stock market scam they all have going on. And they all kind of protect each other, which is why mortgage fraud, do a lot of Americans get charged with that? I don't know. Seems to be a common thing, common theme. A lot of people have done this and gotten away with it or in some form or another, or knowingly or unknowingly commit mortgage fraud. So this was always, I saw it as a tall tale to try to, it's a tall task to try to knock down because it's a issue that a lot of people do or commit in the country. Now, if you were to say mortgage fraud and found out and actually got off your rear ends there, FBI and Justice Department, what the hell was going on at Consofrito, where she happened to be, and there's so many allegations there, on top of there's actual proof of things that are now been popping up in all these civil suits involving many NYPD executives. You would have a real case of something. See, April 24th letter to Pam Bondi, James' attorney, Abby Wool, described the criminal referral as 3 pages of stale, threadbare allegations with no reason to proceed other than they are based on media reports and the next salvo on President Trump's revenge tour against Attorney General James. I don't agree with that. I think that is a crime. It's just, you're asking a lot. You're putting a lot of people, you want a whole jury. It's going to cost millions of dollars. And you're only looking at one instance of something, whether it's mortgage fraud, multiple properties. When, if she's hanging around known convicted felon gangbangers, one being a mob associate, very recently, there's the case of Mark Fishman. I had him on this show. Did you know Mark Fishman right now is sitting in a prison cell because he's disabled? And Tish James, in her official role as Attorney General, not only covered up that, the judges were acting with impunity and just absolutely corrupt in that case, but she's representing them. Therefore, she doesn't bring the case forward against them because he's had complaints. He went to federal court. So the FBI can definitely step in and his stuff, but that would mean you have to do some legwork, and they don't want to do that. See, this mortgage fraud thing sounded great because all they had to do is hand a piece of paper over and then, we'll go to the grand jury with this, which requires little to zero work by an FBI agent or a prosecutor. But if you have to go and investigate everyone that went to Consofrito, go grab the police commissioner that used to work at Caban, go find their phones, which they did have, go look through documents, go through subpoenas, that requires a little bit of work, and nobody wants to work these days. So the most important thing here is you went and are going for Tish James, but you're going for the lowest of the hanging fruit when it comes to the crimes. The real crimes occurred back up in that time period. And you're going to nail a lot of people. You could ask Carl Hasty what the hell he was doing. You could ask Darcel Clark what the hell she was doing. There's all these police officials there, and you hear nothing but madness coming out of the police department of what was going on. That's where you would have more of an avenue and more, chances of getting something really major, because why would a attorney general who has the right to prosecute people be hanging around convicted felon gangbangers? That makes no sense whatsoever, but that's not what they're looking at. We're looking at mortgage fraud. So again, I always thought this was a little light in the loafers if you're going to go for just mortgage fraud when there's a lot of other things. This is more of a political nod, we'll say. Okay, we'll make a political mess because she made one herself with Trump. But are we looking for real crimes, or are you just looking for political talking points? Because that's my thing. I would have gone for the crime. Maybe because I used to wear a badge and actually did my job. Unlike many who like to party with Mrs. Tish James and her criminal crew that she loves so much, whether it be in the Bronx, Brooklyn, or whatever nightclub they were all hanging out in. And I'm not saying people, again, when you hang out in a nightclub, it doesn't make you a bad person. But this crew happened to be involved in a lot of things that are there's so many allegations that I lost count. But where's the DOJ? Where's the DOJ in many issues, actually? Here's this one of the people we'll be talking about today, and that's Frankie Palaguachi. Shout out to you. He sends $9.99 to the Sal Greco Show. I'm going to try to have some espresso on that later. Says Sal Greco and the finest unfiltered podcast. I here to protect the voiceless. The truth always comes out, and that is the truth, Frankie. Chronicles of Collapse says depends which nightclub. You're right, because it does depend which nightclub. We all know about the ones that they were hanging out in. Everybody, it's become public knowledge almost. Rob Lucas said mortgage fraud is easily defended as a mistake and not specific criminal action, hard to prove intent. I agree with you, Rob. But you know what what you can go after is what the hell they were doing at that nightclub when you hear all kinds of mishigas going on there. And she's the attorney general. And she's there. She's not there to just eat this one time. No. She's pictured with the mob associate. She's pictured with different people there. People could put her on the scene. And these are things, and there's parties that are not registered anywhere, meaning you have to put this down in a campaign finance report. They didn't do that. So what was going on there? On top of we hear about envelopes being passed around. You hear about narcotics being passed around. You hear about human trafficking, which was a report of, and she's the attorney general. But let's not even look there, Rob. Why bother? We have mortgage fraud. We can make political points, make her life a living hell. The whole thing is dropped, and then that's it. Don't ever talk about it again. So with that being said, now I'd like to bring in our guest who really has been working on this for quite a while, and we were going to break this down. And so it's none other than the finest unfiltered zone, Marlon Bethel. Hope you're unmuted.
All right.
There you go.
What's up, everyone? How's things? Yeah. We got a lot to talk about. Unfortunately, I had a lot of pictures to show you guys, and we decided at the last minute that we're going to play certain things close for now. But I'm willing to bet that we're going to have a follow-up on this same episode where we're going to be able to show you those documents for yourselves. And I'm actually even thinking that we should have Serena come on at that episode too, because she had a similar role at the DOC, and I would love to hear what she has to say about this. Now, my contention is that what I saw at the trial room. So for all of you who don't know, I was at the trial room about a week ago to see Frankie Palaguachi's trial. And what I saw there. Now, for those of you who don't know the details of his case, we'll be here for like an hour if I were to strictly talk about the details. But I'll just quickly summarize it. The argument that Eric Sanders is making is that the efficacy of the hair test is in doubt, and there is no due process if you have an unscientific process. Okay, and that process has already been tossed out in Boston, and the NYPD, as we know, loves to rubber stamp things and continue failed policies. So that's what they do. That's what they did, and there's lots of problems in the entire process, including oversight of the medical review officer himself and his knowledge of just how much he knows of the process and how much he's kept up to date on changes in the in the field. Because as Eric Sanders has pointed out, and you guys could see his comment right now, processes change. There are processes that were used years ago that years later were deemed unscientific and then no longer being used. So it's the responsibility of those people at medical division to constantly keep up to date on what's going on and to be aware of what's happening in other places so that you can make corrections before you have these same problems, which is what you have right now. They're in a mess. And I'm very fascinated about this case because it has a lot of ramifications on other cases, including as you guys know, the issues with the unlicensed psychologists. And I'm going to avoid using the C word, but I'm going to refer to it as the scamdemic. And you know what that C word means because we have our YouTube overlords don't really like when we mention it. So let's use the scamdemic word. So what I saw in the trial has a lot of ramifications for the scamdemic and the scamdemic mandate, because Dr. Joseph Kufo, who I've mentioned here numerous times, is the department's medical review officer, and he has a responsibility to make sure that you have officers have due process within the boundaries of these policies, right? And as we've talked about many times, I didn't have due process, and a lot of you didn't, because you had to, when they told you to go get the jab, or you're fired. y- you don't
Yeah.
have much of a choice there. So
No.
so yeah, that's just a quick rundown of what we're gonna discuss.
Yeah. So our friend Mr. Palaguachi, who you saw here, okay. And we're gonna play this real quick because this was Eric Sanders on Cop Talk with Kevin Schroeder and Ed Mamet. This was very recently. He was on the show explaining this. Just another rough, like a quick Reader's Digest. This trial is it's all about drug screening tests. Okay, so the drug screening tests, they've already proven the whole thing's been a sham. Why? Because when it initially started, right, it was by this company, I think Psychmedics, and recently, when the Boston Police Department challenged this, they deemed this test from this company to not be transparent, meaning it's a fugazi. Okay, so you can see here, and this is up on the screen, a legal case of City of Boston versus Psychmedics. The legal battle began in the 1990s and has involved multiple lawsuits. The core of the dispute is the reliability of Psychmedics hair drug test, with the City of Boston questioning the test validity while still using it. And there's a background. In 1999, the City of Boston contracted Psychmedics to conduct hair follicle drug testing for the Boston Police Department. Discrimination lawsuit. In 2007, a group of black officers sued the city, alleging that the hair test produced a disproportionate number of false positives for African Americans due to differences in hair texture and the use of hair products. Civil service ruling. In 2013, the Massachusetts Civil Service Commission overturned the firing of several officers, ruling that the hair test was not reliable enough to be the sole basis for terminating a civil servant. Contract dispute. In 2017, Psychmedics sued the city to prevent it from holding the company financially liable for damages owed to the officers. This put the city in the position of defending the reliability of the test in one lawsuit while simultaneously challenging them in court against Psychmedics. Ongoing conflict. In 2019, Boston's highest court weighed in on the issue, leaving it to a lower court to determine if Psychmedics had an obligation to cover the city's legal costs. And of course, those officers did win that case. So, again, there's already legal precedent that proves this test is a farce. It's a fugazi. So why is it still being used in the New York City Police Department? We know that the company itself actually said, no, testing people for cause and all this nonsense, it's not going to be valid. None of it is valid. Don't take things at face value. So let's go back to Eric Sanders talking about this on Cop Talk, and let's hear what he has to say.
It wasn't popular to do that. So, I mean, he's been in it a long time.
Yeah, true. Cap?
Well, I think this was a great interview, and I'm glad we had you. And you opened everybody's eyes to this big lawsuit that's pending with the police department. I'm wondering how they're going to handle it.
Oh, and the drug test too. Remember, that's something else they've done. They give this drug test. Well, I'm going to mention this before I go.
Please.
The drug test is another problem. Boston PD started this drug test with this company called Psychmedics in 1999, and immediately they were subject to litigation. Without getting too complex, what it boils down to is, in order for you to give a test, it has to meet that uniform guideline standard. It never met the standard. Anyway, they wind up getting sued. Black officers are getting terminated because there's research that goes back to the 50s that you can wash hair out of contamination, but people have melanin, they can have, let's say, 1 million particles of some kind of metabolite. But if you have blonde hair, you have only a third of that. And they can't figure out why and how to equal that out with the washing technique. So anyway, Boston gets sued. 2021, they stop using it and they just settle the case for a couple $1 million. The same test the NYPD is still using to this day.
Wow.
And it doesn't meet the Fried test for scientific acceptability. I mean, I can go on and on with it, but the bottom line is that's the next big case I'm going to bring. That's
All
definite.
right. So
That
that
goes
means you
back to
can't
2000.
you can't retire.
I know I'm supposed to be, winding down.
So, Eric, why don't you tell our list?
So you see right there, that was a little bit of a preview of what Marlon's trying to will hammer down because he was actually there. I see Joel Ramirez asking you, Marlon. I'm curious about your perspective. Do you believe this job will effectively adapt to the circumstances it currently faces?
Well, that's a tough question because there's so many problems in the job. Where do we start?
Yeah.
You see, the problem is we talk about this many times. The job loves to rubber stamp field policies. In this case, there are policies that they don't even have policies, and they're continuing on, as Kufo himself said in the testimony about oversight of him and the measures in place to audit the results, to properly audit the results. But the problem is that very few people on the job want to rock the boat, right? And to bring changes, that means to a certain degree rocking the boat, and challenging a lot of these policies, and nobody wants to do it. Do you think that John Chell right now, who rumor has it is trying to get through 3/4, is going to challenge Dr. Kufo on the fact that during the scamdemic, I sent him FDA documents that said that this stuff isn't approved. It's on emergency usage. And therefore, you can't mandate it. Therefore, you can't tell cops it's approved, which the job did. Is John Chell going to challenge Kufo right now? No, he's not, because he wants his 3/4. And it goes, you look at the entire chain. Nobody's going to challenge the next level up. They're not going to, because everybody's looking out for their own interests. So John Chell isn't going to challenge Kufo. Kufo wasn't going to challenge the scamdemic mandate because he's trying to keep his nice, cozy side gig from his actual practice. The PC, Shea, and later on Sewell aren't going to challenge the policy because the mayor wants it. The mayor isn't going to challenge a policy because the donor class, who includes the farmer companies, pay a lot of money to New York City. So it's nobody wants to rock the boat. So they just keep on rubber stamping this failure onward. So I don't know, to answer your question, Joel, I don't know how this is going to end, but a lot of these problems are coming to a head where they're going to have to deal with it one way or the other.
Yeah. So I don't know if you want to take us through what you saw that day in the trial room, or what the analysis was of everything. I mean, I had Eric on about a week and a half ago. He went into it a little, what he asked, but you had I'm not saying a different view, but you had a view of it, and you came up with this whole, analysis of everything, and you tie it into everything else they're doing, kind of like what you're speaking about. So why don't you tell us about that?
Yeah. So it kind of gave me a bigger picture. One of the things, since the job got rid of me, I've been trying to get at is not just why it happened, but the thinking behind it, how the job got to this point. So being there and seeing the trial room, which was my first time seeing a trial. I've never been in a trial room. I've never, the thought never came to me to go and observe what's happening in the trial room. So going there and seeing it from my perspective was kind of eye-opening to see how the job goes after you, and how it's a kangaroo court set up to protect the system and not protect the system and go after your integrity and keep like I said, keep the things in place. So before we go on, Sal made the point that that psych medics, this thing was already tossed out in Boston. Okay, I just want to point out that Boston also said that this is in their own words, the conduct alleged in the complaint is wrongful and negligent on the part of psych medics. Okay, so this is coming from Boston, right? But the job itself thinks that, you know, that has nothing to do with New York, and this is in the department's lawyer, his own words. He's like, that's Boston, that has nothing to do with New York. Okay, but the behavior I see in the court that made me realize it's a kangaroo court is that Vanessa, what's her name, Facio Lynch, who's the assistant commissioner, the assistant commissioner of trials, the assistant deputy commissioner of trials. She has that title. She's basically the number 2 in charge of that section, right? I saw her numerous times let let speculation go on and you know, overrule objections to that speculation. And keep in mind, there's a difference between professional opinion and speculation. And you can't have speculation which is based on conjecture, assumptions, and a lack of personal knowledge in a trial. And yet she allowed it. And later on, you hear the witness admits when Eric Sanders redirects or recrosses, he says, yeah, it's speculation. You know, when the department's attorney asked him the question, Eric objected to it, and she says words to the effect of, I think he's asking a professional opinion, meaning that he's an expert in the field, but he isn't in that particular aspect. And when Eric later asks him, he admits it twice that, yeah, I'm speculating, you know. And this happens 3 times, because it happens once with the sergeant, and it happened again with Dr. Kupo. She allows Kupo to go on speculating when Kupo isn't a toxicologist and he's just a trained physician. You know, she lets him go on and speculate about you know, things which he didn't know. And then later on, he himself also basically admits words to the effect of, I'm speculating. So
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, bro. I'm sitting there watching this, and I'm like, how is this happening? You know, it's almost like Eric was going. You're in a boxing match, and then the referee jumps in there with a pair of gloves and starts fighting you too. And
yeah, that's what it sounds like.
Really?
Oh, speculate. You know, so you imagine, just so people understand how this stupid kangaroo court works. Imagine you're in a major case, like a murder trial, and the guy says, yeah, you know, I don't know. I think it was him. I'm not too sure. I'm not an expert in anything. I just saw someone, a silhouette. It kind of looks like him. It might be a little shorter. Who knows? And the judge says, yeah, I'm allowing this. This is entered into evidence. Here's your expert witness and everything. That's kind of what was being said in this trial room. So continue, Marlon.
Yeah. So the witness, no, the expert brought on by the department, he tells the department's lawyer, he's like, he uses the words, my speculation, right? This is after Fazio said that, oh, it's expert opinion, right? He says my speculation, and then it's Eric's turn to recross, and Eric asks him, basically, so you're speculating, right? And he goes, yeah. So, yeah. So yeah, and I have one instance where that even comes back to I think it came back to bite the job in the ass, because like the other thing I noticed is that Facio Lynch, I think that I'm pronouncing her last name correctly, but she asked a question that to me it seemed a little biased and kind of like it favored the city, you know. And I think it came back to bite the city in the ass, because the expert who by the way, we'll get to that part. The expert basically tells, so basically here's the problem, right? That psych medics themselves say that by their own procedure, you're supposed to take the hair closest to the base of the scalp, because there are problems when you take when you sample the hair from other parts of the body, right? So she jumps in and asks a question that's favorable to the department, and then because Eric, I think Eric had a line of questioning that was really hit on the points, on his argument. She comes in with that question, and basically the expert, who works for psych medics, by the way, he then points out the problems with taking body hair, how it's inconsistent. So I looked at that, and now this wasn't from Mighty, by the way. So this is just looking over what happened the prior days, right? But this it came back to bite them in the butt, and I believe that the questioning, the letting Kufo speculate later on when I was there, it happened again, and it's I think it hurts them. It hurts them, and it was better off that she didn't let him go on speculating, But again, my point is that you're seeing behavior in the trial room that doesn't seem impartial for the role that the assistant commissioner of trials is supposed to play, which basically they're the judge, okay? And the judge, again, has to be careful in not coming across as favoring one side or appearing to conduct an actual cross-examination themselves. And that's what it looked like was happening there.
See right here on the screen says, when a judge may examine a witness, clarifying testimony, a judge can ask questions to clarify confusing or unclear testimony from a witness. In the interest of justice, a judge may question a witness to ensure all relevant facts are brought out and that the truth is established, upholding the principle of justice. On a party's request, a judge can examine a witness if a party requests it, although the judge still retains discretion over how to proceed. When a judge should not cross-examine, favoring a side, a judge should never ask questions that appear to favor one party, such as asking leading questions for the prosecution, discrediting a witness. It is generally inappropriate for a judge to conduct an extensive cross-examination designed to discredit a witness or make them appear untrustworthy, as this is the role of the opposing counsel, in front of the jury. If a judge feels it is absolutely necessary to question a witness in a manner that might resemble cross-examination, this should generally be done in the absence of the jury to prevent the jury from inferring that the judge is biased. So that's not what these kangaroo courts will call department trials. That's not what happens there. You're already hearing how, I don't know how not to, I don't know how in a trial you let speculation continue on in a court case. I could tell you, and I see Joel Ramirez in here too. Me and Joel were in this trial room, and my own case, all they kept presenting were pictures. Sal Greco's pictured here. It's the same picture 50,000 different times from 50,000 different angles. All you're establishing is I'm in a picture with someone. Does Sal Greco speak to these people? No. Is he part of these people? No. Oh, but so then he tells people that they put on these subpoenas, which were illegal with me, that I was on drugs or something. I'm a drug a drug dealer. So I remember my lawyer, which was the PBA lawyer at the time, he had asked them, so why did you drug test Mr. Greco? Oh, we never drug tested him. So you just got a subpoena, said this guy's on drugs, all this stuff, and never even dole tested him. Oh, we never suspected him of being on drugs. So then why did you put in a subpoena that Sal's involved with narcotics? Because that's the only way any company would have took them seriously in their little witch hunt that they did on me. That just shows you a little bit of, and the judge, oh, well, since you illegally got the subpoena, I'm going to allow it anyway. That's what Paul Gamble, a great guy, what a wonderful human being he is. He's been railroading cops left and right for the job forever. So that's just a little bit. I'm just telling you about what's going on with the trial room in the NYPD. But Marlon, he has even more with this, but he was just there. This was just about a week or two ago. So this still is ongoing under the savior of New York City and soccer mom Jessica Tisch as police commissioner.
Yeah. So let's get back to Kufo now, because this is Kufo himself is why I believe this case is has a lot of ramifications. Okay, now we said that Kufo is the medical review officer, and if you could put that image up again, Jack. Yeah. So the medical review officer has certain responsibilities. Okay, and the problem is, right, that when you look at Kufo's testimony, that he was unaware of certain things. Okay, like for instance, Kufo was unaware of the RIAH testing. That's basically the methodology that psychomedics. It's one of the methodologies of testing. Okay. And a lot of times he would refer back to the screening unit itself. Now the thing is, yes, his role as medical review officer is a little different, but keep in mind he's number 2 at the department. Okay, so as we said before, you have a responsibility to keep aware of what's going on, and to make changes as they may need to be made. And you can't just say, oh, okay, that's that's that unit, that has nothing to do with me. And especially since Kufo is neither a toxicologist or a pharmacologist, so in a so he doesn't have, he's a physician, so that means he doesn't have specific knowledge of certain aspects of that testing. Okay, and the problem here is that had the department updated, kept abreast about a lot of these things, they might have been able to make the changes before it got to this point. And the problem is they didn't. And just like in the problem with the psychologist, the unlicensed psychologist, right?
Mm-hmm.
They did not make changes to that. So now they're in a multiple legal sand pits because of it.
So they're aware of this, but they didn't do anything to change it. So basically they know about this, but they don't alter, because they don't alter how they do it. They just continue doing it the way they've always done, even though they know that that's not the right way. That's essentially what you're saying.
Well, I'm saying I went in there thinking that Kufo was going to be an arrogant guy. Now, maybe it's because he was on trial and there's a certain level of decorum that he has to put up. But I left there thinking that, okay, he wasn't arrogant, I understand, that arrogance didn't come through. But what did come through is a certain amount of incompetence, and that incompetence in that he's unaware. He himself said he was unaware of department policy. Okay. And what came across is a lack of competence, and an unawareness of certain rules. Okay. And what was going on, like he couldn't account for the 3 samples, Frankie's 3 samples being sent to psychomedics. And the thing is, you're the number 2 in medical division. Okay, there has to be a level of, there has to be some sort of accountability for all of these processes. You can't just, because things are in place and we have the train that's been running for like how many years, you can't just leave the train and wait until it goes off the track one day. You have to do a little maintenance every now and then. And to me, what came across was that incompetence. Now, I'd like to also point out that, as told to me, the sergeant from there he wasn't able to answer clearly some questions about the process either. So, and the fact that that psychomedics in their own documents state that the best spot is to take hair from the base of the scalp rather than the body. So it's not just Kufo.
They've been doing that test, though. I remember they take hair samples from other places other than your head. I know they used to, they wanted your arm or your leg. I remember that. I mean, I've heard John McCarry say numerous times he would have all kinds of, scar, and they're like, what is that? You're like, one half of his whole leg was like missing all this hair from going to these stupid drug tests that really, it's like targeting people you don't like for things, and you're telling me the number 2 guy in the medical division doesn't know the department policy, doesn't know the procedures, but he's supposed to be speculating about things on the stand, and his word is gold. That's essentially what I'm hearing here.
Well, he doesn't seem to be current on it, and up to date on what's happening, because if he was, I mean, let's look at the facts. If they were, they would have made changes since Boston sued the company, and since Boston got rid of him.
This is like, my head is spinning. This guy is supposed to be this number 2 in the medical division. He's supposed to be the expert on this stuff. He doesn't know the department. So basically, he's been there for a while, and he doesn't have to know anything because all the other people take care of everything for him.
That's correct. Yep.
And then when he's up on the stand, he can't answer anything because he doesn't know anything. He's just a guy with a name, doctor. That's basically what they're doing. They're throwing you a guy in front saying, oh, he's been working with us forever. He's a doctor, but he has no idea about any of the department's own procedures, which means he doesn't have a say in anything. He's just another figurehead. Essentially, that's what you're saying. How does he not know the department procedure? He's the number 2 guy in charge.
Well, keep in mind also that his training as medical review officer doesn't come from the NYPD, and he himself, who oversees him? What policy is in place to audit the auditor here? There is none.
There is none.
And in a lot of ways, I've said this before, that civilians in the NYPD, especially at that level, there's no oversight of them, because here's the problem. The job, values a lot of what comes from civilians more than they do uniformed personnel. I'm telling you this from my experience being in Intel. Like in Intel, the job valued what the analysts say in a lot of ways more than you, because you see the analysts come with tons of degrees, and they may know a lot of SAT words, so their vocabulary may be a lot bigger than yours. Okay. And the job, whenever they tell them all kinds of nonsense, the job, because it's superfluous, the job loves that, and loves these analysts. But if you as the cop tell them that, it's like, I need a second opinion, So what I think happens is the job sees these civilians as people who have so much opportunities that we're lucky to have their presence here, They view a guy like Cooper, who has his own practice, as being, it's an honor for the department to have you here. If Cooper isn't there, who could we ever find to replace him? Whereas you, the cop, you're a number. Okay, who cares what you think? We get rid of you. No, look, we got rid of me, got rid of you. We don't need you. We'll replace you with the $2 an hour rookie who just got on the job yesterday. So it's. The job treats civilians a lot differently than they do uniformed personnel.
They'll replace you with a guy running around with stolen license plates, getting arrested in the station house the other day. That's what they replaced you with. The Lone Silencer said, "Guy sounds like his credibility of being a doctor is up there with Dr. Dre." I don't know. You see, the thing is his credibility is that he really shouldn't have been in the trial room. He can't testify to any of this stuff, because he doesn't know anything. Eric Sanders said, yes, remember, he testified to that, as if the department is lucky to have him with no training since the 1980s. That would be enough to throw this entire thing out. Here's your star witness that knows nothing. about the whole situation, yet he's the number 2 guy in charge. So how is this farce continuing? Like, you saw the whole thing, Marlon. Didn't Eric move to try to strike this whole thing just on this guy? Now he's the expert that doesn't know anything, and they continue to let this go on.
Yeah, well, keep in mind also that Eric, there's tons of there's evidence that Eric exhibits that Eric wanted to bring to the case, and she wouldn't allow it. Like the SEC documents, which is a legal document. I don't understand why that's not why that's not allowed. But it goes back to what I said. They're trying to protect the system, and make the case strictly about Frankie, and again, I kind of lost my train of thought on that, but it's basically to protect the system.
My head, and I see people in the comments too, a head is spinning even hearing some guy is supposed to be an expert, Mr. I've been on the job forever, second in charge. He knows nothing about anything we're talking about other than, yeah, I'm a doctor, but I don't know any of the policies in the department. So you're really a doctor of something else. And this was a problem I saw in the medical division years ago, like a department surgeon, and you're trying to, give an evaluation of an officer in front of you who's telling you, yeah, I have my problem here. I had my elbow. I had like a ACL, RS, whatever it is that they have. They had a Tommy John surgery. They don't know anything about that. They're like, yeah, I'm like a doctor for I'm a cardiologist. What the hell does he know about what he's telling them? Yeah, but you're fine. You can go back to work because the job is telling him that. So this is the kind of stuff that's being exposed, that the job only uses these people as figureheads. You go out there and you toe the company line and go against your own training or the training you lack in order to represent us, and that we're going to tell you this guy has to go, this guy has to go, this guy stays, that guy's a friend of ours, that one parties with us, oh, we can't touch them. That's kind of what I'm seeing here. I mean, Eric Sanders said, and what rights, if any, an officer has if the test is positive and a method to challenge it?
Yeah.
I'm speechless. And this kind of exposes what I'm saying, in that they have these department figureheads, whatever doctor, and they're just towing the line or the company line because they don't know anything department-wise, procedure-wise. That's all the underlings that do all the dirty work. And then they just present this guy with, go out and say this, or don't say this, because he's ill-prepared. He didn't know what the hell he was saying on the stand there with Eric. I mean, Special Agent says the document should have been judiciously noticed. This is what happens when you have either biased or unknowledgeable arbiters presiding over the proceedings. Eric Sanders says, remember, the psychmedics employee, by definition, can't be an expert. He's testifying to the veracity of his employer's product.
Yeah. So that's a great point, and that's one of the other conclusions I got from this is the department's usage of circular logic. So like they'll say that, okay, they'll admit that Frankie doesn't have to. It's the employer's job to prove that the process is valid, but Frankie has to bring an expert. They keep saying you got to bring the expert. Okay. And when they bring an expert, the expert has a vested interest in the product being, a vested interest in the NYPD continuing to purchase the product, So again, the job is trying to protect the process and kick the can down the road. And the problem is that if this was solved years ago, it wouldn't have been a big issue now. But the more you kick the can down the road, the bigger the problem is down the road. But again, you see, nobody wants to rock the boat. Everybody wants to kick the can down the road until they're not there. So it ain't their problem,
Yeah. That's essentially what they all do. All these police agencies, government agencies, all do the same thing. I mean, Rob Lukash says if they lost the case, it would set the job back and they wouldn't know what to do for future testing. So they shaped the court to win the case. And essentially, Rob is right. That's what they're doing in this instance. They might win this in the kangaroo court. They will not win this in the real courtroom. They are going to get destroyed. Frankie Palaguachi, who's in the chat right now, who's the subject of this entire witch hunt, says the collective bargaining agreement is being violated. That's on top, because remember, he's a detective. On top of everything else, they're violating the collective bargaining agreement with this. I can't believe this stuff. I mean, Special Hagen says, unfortunately, the rules of evidence don't apply in administrative proceedings. So you have suspect experts and exhibits that should be admitted don't get in. Because so why does Frank have to provide an expert witness, but theirs is not even an expert on anything? He's speculating. How does that work? How is this allowed? Is there a way to change this? This entire thing has to be abolished. Trial room, none of this is fair. It's all designed. It's designed to aid the job per se. I mean, so what during your whole time there, Marlon, what's your conclusion of this entire thing? Because I don't know if there's going to be a part 2 to this. Apparently there should be, right? They want him to bring an expert witness, whatever that means.
Well, yeah. My conclusions are basically the department works to protect itself, and they use again, like I said, they use a lot of they look to protect invalidated processes and failed processes, because solving it is again rocking the boat. But they use during the trial, you're going to get the judge is going to be playing prosecutor as well, okay, and asking questions that really like thread the needle to being favorable to the city. And you're getting circular logic used by the city, and that includes bringing experts that have a vested interest in keeping policies in place. You're getting, anytime Eric would bring up some great points, again, like I said, she would come in and ask a question that make you think. I don't think that sounds that question sounds like you're trying to get. It's one thing that for a judge to ask for clarity in something, but it's another thing for the judge to ask multiple questions, and to me that seems just inappropriate for the role. So that's what you're also getting in that trial room. So if you have to go to the trial room for any overall failures of department policy, they're going to make it about you, because again, solving that policy problem is too much of a problem for them to do now. They'd rather kick the can down the road.
They would have to admit guilt, and they don't know how to do that. That's why they have all these secret meetings there. 1PP, the soccer mom is all upset over what we say and what Eric Sanders keeps exposing. They're all upset over that stuff. I mean, Eric Sanders says here, the department and the hearing officers sidestepped the legal arguments regarding the validity and general acceptance in the scientific community.
Yeah.
That's what they essentially. That's what they did. So how does Frank Palaguachi get any, due process? Eric Sanders says here, yes, character assassination is their tactic. Frank doesn't have any due. This is just, he's guilty. They're going to do anything and say anything, and he's guilty, and he must be punished.
Yeah. And again, where have we seen this behavior? And this is why it's going to come up again, because we've yet to fully go over the scamdemic and look at the problems there, because there are many cops now who have adverse reactions to it. And at some point, they're going to look at what the department did. And again, Kufo's role as medical review officer, he failed that during the scamdemic, because when I showed him when I sent him those documents, in fact, what I realized while seeing this trial is why I got the phone call from Kufo, because when I send those documents to strategic initiatives, they forward it to Kufo because he's the medical review officer. And instead of looking at it and acting as the gatekeeper, which he's supposed to do in his role as medical review officer, he dismissed it and told me I'm wrong. So in the trial, Eric Sanders points out in his closing, he pointed out that he doesn't test. He admits he's not a toxicologist, and he doesn't engage in forensic science. All he does is look at stuff and then checks it off. All he does, he's basically the rubber stamp. All he looks at is rubber stamp it. He's not going to review it. He's not going to look at the, research the efficacy of the process itself. And that's exactly what he did when I sent him those documents, because those documents were from the FDA themselves, and he didn't even bother looking at it.
He is the hatchet man, much like Paul Gamble is the hatchet man in the trial room there with the way they run things. Just like they have hatchet men, Kaz Dawdry, John Shell, they have their own little hatchet men. It's one, as you go up the chain, you'll see it, who they use. So he's basically rubber stamping things. And rubber stamping things, and he's doing what they were doing recently with Donlin said. They rubber stamped his name on all kinds of stuff, and he never signed anything. So that's essentially how the department runs. That's unbelievable.
Yeah, Eric made a great comment again in his closing. He said that we think is not a scientific standard. Okay. And that's the problem with the job. It's coming from authoritative source, from up above, and that's not a scientific standard, and it's what's provable. He says this, it's what's provable in the scientific community. And again, when you look, you go back and you look at all these cases, what keeps coming up? They're not looking at the overall policy itself, and whether the efficacy. They're not looking at the efficacy of the policy.
I see this. IMP Fracco says all he does is what the department tells him to do, that's essentially what I said. Omar Sharif said rubber stamping is something new? ? Absolutely not. This has been going on for decades. Sleepy Joe says, it's funny. Just take the hit, kid. Every PBA rep. Exactly. That's exactly what they do. They said that with me. Oh, you're guilty of something. Because guilty of what? Then they never had anything anyway. What did they tell me? Oh, well, we don't like your friend. That's essentially what they did. Oh, uncompensated security, some made-up term. Meanwhile, all kinds of people doing security, off-duty, not registering anything. One of them getting caught recently in a mass shooting or something. There was a detective going out to get something to eat. They were working without paperwork, whatever you want to call it, uncompensated. They just make it up as they go along to try to fit their little narratives, Yeah. It's like, Special Hagen says, sounds great for an Article 78 arbitrary and capricious process. I think the whole thing should be abolished. The trial room is not set up to be fair. It's set up to be, we need to railroad someone. How do we do that? And that's the best way to do it. And they flush out who they don't like and who they keep. They set it up to make it, keep the person that's there. Being in there, I could tell you it's set up that way. I was in that trial room, and things that you try to present, you can't do this, you can't do that. But they're bringing in people and they're doing and saying things that are not right, but they allow it anyway. Like saying somebody's a drug fiend, but we never tested him for that. And we also don't have the right to use an administrative subpoena criminally, which is what they were doing. But that's all okay, according to Paul Gamble, who's what a great judge he is. Or not even a judge. He's a lawyer. They put him there legally, too. He could look that whole thing up, too, So, Marlon, how does this tie into everything else? Because we see this, the unlicensed psychologist, right? You have that whole scandal. You have this. You have the scamdemic. It all involves the same unit, medical division.
Yeah. Well. So I was actually gonna bring up your case, Sal, because your case here it is a perfect example of how they want to protect a failed policy, which should have been corrected then. And that policy is criminal association, because it's speculative. It's we think you're a criminal because you know, because you're in a picture with somebody. Yeah, we think, and instead of doing that, what did they do? They made it about you and a character attack. You know, and this is why I believe it's connected to everything. It's we're looking at basically at the mentality of the job and how they respond to it, and how they you know, how they go about protecting these things.
And you're not allowed to attack their character though, because you know they'll get, oh, you can't say that. They'll be the judge, but the judge in the trial room will allow any character attack on you. You try to question their witnesses. You can't do that. I'm going to strike that. You know, but if it's the other way around, it's okay, because again, it's the whole thing is set up for them to do whatever they want. It's the whole thing is a Soviet style show trial basically. And either they're going to do it because they like you, or they're going to do it to destroy you and get rid of you. That's the whole setup. That nothing is fair in these department trials, because you're seeing the process, like I said. And now every now and then they do things the right way. If the guy's not connected, or, you know, it's not a big case, it's not anything that you're not challenging anything, you're not an important figure per se, your name is not too big, or you don't know the chief or whatever, then they're going to let everything go the way it should be. Because not every case is this way, but there's plenty of them that they use, and there's people that have access to grind, and it's always been like that. This job is like high school. It really is. And they use things to destroy people. You know, Joe doesn't like John, so he calls Rob. Rob calls Mark, and then let's use the weight of the entire job, whatever it takes to get rid of this guy. And that's how they do it. It's been like that for many decades, but this in particular exposes something in a larger sense. I don't know. I think there's going to be they're going to have another date or no? Do you know about that with Frankie's trial?
I actually got to follow up with them and see if they've gotten any updates. So I'll have to get back to you on that.
Yeah, that's what I want to know. Is if he has another date, I suggest you go in there and see. See, well,
I'm actually thinking of going in there like once a week. You know, I have to find a time, but I'm thinking of going there just to see, you know, just to see what else is going on in there, or what other cases may be going, because I think you know, the lesson we're seeing here is that how a case that you wouldn't think has ramifications on other cases, I think it will. And like I said, Kufo is going to be up on that. He better get comfortable on that stand, because he's going to be called there for multiple cases in the future. You know, as the now knowing that he's the medical review officer of the department changes a lot of things. Especially look at all those people whose medical accommodation was denied. You know,
there's so many.
Yeah, now we know who it directly went through. And we suspected that it went to Kufo, but knowing that specifically that he's the medical review officer, that's something I didn't know before. So I think once more people are aware of it, it may change things, you know, especially about how they go about these cases going forward.
Eric Sanders said here in the comments, no, we're awaiting a decision. See the prior comment. So no, I guess they're waiting for a decision on Frankie's case. Joel Ramirez said, Marlon, let me know. So Joel will go with you to these if you want to visit the trial room and see what other spectacle they're going to put on, right? And what other officer or supervisor they want to bury or help. Depends. A lot of times you see it. You see the wink and the nod right in front of your eyes, and you go, how did that happen? But it all depends on who you know. It's one of these kind of jobs, you know. But there was one thing I wanted to get to besides this. So it kind of ties in, because it's something that should have been in a trial room, but it wasn't, because they should have suspended the former chief of department. And that's the entire overtime procedure. Now, you remember we were the first to really get into the entire Lieutenant Quatisha Epps scandal with Jeffrey Madry. They're using overtime, and they're doing all these crazy things where all kinds of people were making an abundance of overtime. They abused this system. We understand that Tanya Kinsella, the first deputy commissioner, supposed to be in charge of this. She testified in front of the city council, said that, but nobody ever brings that up anymore. So they didn't have any checks and balances, and it was just complete chaos, right? So now there's an operations order here. This was just 2 days ago. It's a pilot program, the digitization of overtime report in office of First Deputy Commissioner, Office of the Personnel, Bureau, Police Academy, 120th Precinct, and 120th Precinct Detective Squad. So they're going to start digitalizing the overtime, which I don't know what that's going to do. But from what I understand, this is about 10 months too late, by the way. The soccer mom, she's been police commissioner under this entire scandal. She said she was going to initially do things. She's done nothing. She's done a lot of nothing other than, get puff pieces written about her. She clearly doesn't understand the culture. She's way out in left field and then running circles around her, which makes her, she's not the person suitable for this job. Sorry, that's just the way I feel and the way rank and file feel. So what is your take on what they just put up, this operations order, digitalizing the overtime or pilot program? How does that solve the issue that just happened, not even 10 months ago, that was exposed?
Yeah. I'm glad you brought that up, Sal, because it doesn't. Okay, it doesn't. It's exactly what we're talking about in this episode. They find ways. It's smoke and mirrors. Okay, but it doesn't. It continues. It protects the system, while seeming to do something about the problem, but it doesn't. Because what was the problem? The problem was executives and the nobility class of 1PP, okay, being able to give their cronies and subordinates and their love interests as much overtime as they feel like, okay? And how does this solve that problem? It doesn't, because there's a clause in there. If you could pull it up, Jack, there's a clause in there. I put it up on my Twitter. It says that all this is basically adds another step for the for that electronic overtime slip to be filled out by either an executive or a CO or the XO. So how does that solve the problem? Because Madry was a chief. Okay, there's no, if you have a discipline problem and a competency problem at the top, this doesn't solve that problem, because those people are still there. Those people still, do what they do without any sort of discipline on them. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about, Jack. Says only a supervisor of at least one rank above the submitting officer can approve a second endorsement of the digital overtime unless the supervisor is the same rank as is designated as commanding officer, XO, integrity control operations command. You get it. Basically, he's an executive. The problem is that we have these guys at the top have no accountability and they have no discipline, and they're just going to find another way. So what? He has to. There's an extra signature that has to be signed on, and it's now on a computer instead of being paper. So what? They're still going to do it. If
They're going to do this. I mean, Rob Lukesh says, may not solve it, but the bureaus and investigative units will have greater access to see when submitted and who verified it. That's part is true in part, but it doesn't solve the problem of what was going on. I mean, Special Agent says that Madry and company were running a cat house and had these women paying them back a portion of the money they were stealing from the department. It is beyond insane why the feds haven't acted. I agree. This does not solve that issue, by the way. None of this solves what happened and how they handled it, where Paul Saraceno's the fall guy. One guy did it all. That didn't even do anything other than, yes, what he's doing is you're handing him this pen and he hands the pen over to the next guy in front of him. He has no say with that. It's all the chief of department that approved that. Joe Ramirez says, even if an executive signed it, he still won't be responsible for it. I don't know. I don't know how this, they're trying to pass this off, Marlon, like we solved the issue. That's what the soccer mom's trying to do here.
Yeah. So we talked about how they like to kick the can down the road because nobody wants to rock the boat, right?
No.
So in a way, you see, she doesn't want to rock the boat with these executives either.
Oh, no.
The reason why I think, I just thought of this morning. I was thinking this over again. I'm like, the reason why she doesn't want to rock the boat because they put up with a lot of crap themselves, and I think of it, all the crap the CEOs put up with. You have like you just got 17 rookies from the last academy class, and you put them all on foot posts in your precinct, right? And now all of a sudden, all out comes, and you got your 17 rookies just got bounced to the Bronx for the summertime. Now what do? You're short of manpower, so you got to figure out how am I going to do this with when I'm short of personnel, and I got CompStat in 2 weeks, and they're going to be screaming at me for my numbers when you took away 17 cops from me. So the CEOs put up with a lot of crap. And my thinking on this is the department gives them that white shirt immunity because they realize how much crap they got to put up with. And if they didn't give them the white shirt immunity to a certain degree, they probably would never go up that high in the rank. Nobody would want to become a captain. But the reason why they still give them all that crap is because they don't want to rock the boat with the progressive city council, the whack jobs who have made policing harder for them. They don't want to rock the boat with the mayor. The mayor again doesn't want to rock the boat with the donor class, the billionaire donor class. So it's meant to, she doesn't want to rock the boat with these guys either. So it's a crazy system that we're in, Sal.
No, it is. And I see here, Eric Sanders said there is a substantial difference between mismanagement and an intent to benefit oneself through fraud, which is these guys, what they were doing. I still don't know why you haven't heard anything. There's been no indictments, nothing. They took everyone's phones. This guy Madry's house. I mean, they went out and they were going after all this guy's stuff. If it's really to protect Eric Adams, you don't have a justice system anymore. Because if they get away with all of that, that just shows you, the powerful can get away with whatever if they know the right people. And the regular guy, you spit on a sidewalk, you're facing like life in prison. Like that's kind of the scale of how this would go. It sounds ridiculous, but that's kind of what's going on here. I mean, Special Agent said they weren't as brazen and reckless, Hood Mayor responding to him. Quid pro quo and unlawful harassment have been around for a long time, which is true. Rob Lukesh says, I agree with you, Sal. The problem was on the top, and now they institute a policy for the cops in the commands. Pure magic trick. Problem solved. Laughing out loud. That's what this policy is, though. It's a knee-jerk reaction 10 months too late, but it doesn't solve the issue. They're not addressing what happened, how they're going to change that, who's being held responsible. It's just, it's gone. Let it go away. It's under a rug. It never happened. What do you mean? What are you talking about? Madry's retired. John Shell's out the door. All these people are gone. What are you talking about? Even though there's multi-million-dollar lawsuits that are coming down the pike that they're all having to respond to. I mean, these people all sued. There's civil litigation. Epps' lawsuit still, just because they haven't completely put everything in. I mean, you're seeing it. I mean, I saw something today with Eric Sanders put up with the rubber stamp of Tom Donlan sitting. Remember they said that never happened? Well, somehow Eric's got that. There's the folder, too, Chief of Department folder. And I understand that Jessica Tisch lost her mind seeing that online because apparently they were trying to say that all that stuff never happened. There's no evidence of it, but there is evidence of it. As Eric Sanders said, the department specializes in smoke and mirror magic. It's true. I mean, and Marlon, you were there. You witnessed all of it in the trial room in one afternoon. And yet, but they still continue to this day with this kind of stuff going on. And their answer is, we're going to come up with some bogus policy that does absolutely nothing to fix it. Eric Sanders said, I heard that Madry was fired. More on that, too.
Interesting.
If Madry was fired, because he should have been, suspended and I don't know. He was suspended. He could terminate him. There's no reason for him to get his full pension or anything like that. I don't know why he should even have a good guy letter. But as bad as he is, there's many around him that should suffer the same fate. Because we see John Shell. Oh, wait, we haven't seen John Shell. So I was right about that 3/4, huh? I was right about that. I'm sure John is watching right now. Yeah, these kind of guys, what's going on with them? Just because you're going to use Madry is a main figure, but there's other people also. You can't just let everyone. I'm not saying you're not going to be able to get everyone in the forest, but there's some bigger names that were involved that nothing has happened. You know, Special Agent says Tisha's a disappointment. She could have gone in there and cleaned up shop. They wouldn't have fired her because of her family. Sad. Now she's the soccer mom, Special Agent. It's just she has no idea what's going on. Well, what are your thoughts on all of that? I mean, if you hear that Madry got fired.
Yeah, that'd be interesting if that actually happened, you know? I mean, I want to see it because, you know, we talked many times about how, you know, once you're in Eric Adams' circle, it's very hard to, you know, you only fail upward, you know?
Yeah. You failing forwards, all of them. Every single one of these guys fail forward. I mean, you got Kaz Dordry running wild with these videos. That is, I would love to know the total number of what this cost taxpayers for his videos. Also, the furnishing of their office, that needs to be looked into. His office is furnished, and I'm like, well, doesn't building maintenance have to approve this stuff? So it's one thing after the other after the other. You have to ask yourself, can this get any worse? I don't know. We still have September 18th. Still have 3.5 months that things could still go bad. You know, Eric Sanders said, so I learned. So I guess it is true. Madry got fired. Nobody said anything about that.
Interesting. I would think that would be a good lesson to teach them, to teach everyone about, you know, having discipline on the job. You know, we would, you know, remember when we were in the academy and like Campisi would come down and tell us, have these talks, you know, and, you know, you were taught in the academy, you know, about you screw up and you're gone, you know, and how much of these guys have, you know, it seems to me that if you get to a certain level, it's like, that all goes out the window and, you know, don't have to worry about discipline anymore. You know, you don't have to worry about embarrassing the job anymore. And that's, you know, you're not going to have a disciplined workforce if the people at the top don't have the same rules applied to them as the plebs on the street, you know.
And this, I remember this. So I believe this is Jeffrey Madry's discipline on the screen, right? Is that who this is? Okay, I see you got command discipline. You got 45 days. Even so, that's 45 days, but it should have been worse for this. Yeah. You know, involved in I remember that the Department of Investigation that he got involved in, and he tried to get his friend out for that whole thing. He should have just stayed away from. Essentially, just why even get involved or put yourself out there? You're a big chief. You don't do that kind of stuff. You let things play out. You know. I don't get it. Rob Lukesh says that's why the precinct looked terrible. The BMS budget is blown on one police plaza offices. Also, precinct offices, because if you remember, when Banks was the chief of department, there was a whole scandal. And these chiefs, remember, someone I know ended up getting charged. One person got charged, but he beat the case, actually. They never had anything on him. He wasn't the one doing all this major crazy stuff. Some of those guys were getting their office, meaning, you know, their commanding officer, their office is furnished. And guess who paid for it? Taxpayers. That has to get approved by building maintenance. Obviously, it didn't get approved. And I'll tell you what else was going on. Some of these buildings that their precinct is landmarked. So how do you have your place furnished without any approval by an outside contractor that the building maintenance approved? But nobody would speak because who was the chief of department? Jeffrey Banks. And he essentially ran everything, whether it was under Kelly or Bratton. That guy is almost like untouchable, which is why he was an indicted co-conspirator. He didn't go to jail. So I don't know who he knows or what he knows, but, you know, he was one of the guys that started this stuff. And then now later on, I believe it's happening with Kaz Dordry and them today. See, Frankie Palaguachi's in the chat yet again. $9.99 to the Sal Greco Show. I'm going to be having more espresso on you later. He says the people's attorney, Eric Sanders. shout out to Eric. I definitely see him in the comments, and it's really it's really mind numbing to see what goes on every day with this police department. And Mr. Bill 241 said Tish is the Marusha Salt of the NYPD. She's the soccer mom. That's how I best describe it.
Well, I think you mean she's over her head, Sal, and I think see, they only
beyond
have
beyond everything, way overhead.
Yeah,
she's like a deer in headlights.
She only has 2 more months there, and the rumors are what the rumors are. Rodney Harrison is kind of trying to smooth his way into that role, and I think it's not about, at this point, it's not about what we're going to see now, but it's about what they can kick down the road to when whoever else gets into that office, because I'm pretty sure, well into the next commissioner, you're going to be hearing about what's happening now. And like I said, these things, you're kicking that can down the road. So it's going to be that commissioner's problem. And you're not going to be hearing the end of scandals, because we've got like a train, a runaway train right now. And that runaway train is just, it's nothing has been, nothing is slowing it down right now,
Mm-hmm. I would think, though, as bad as, and I believe Rodney Harrison would be the police commissioner if Mamdani won. And that's what I'm saying. When de Blasio won, you had Bratton. So there's always different dynamics, police department and mayor. Rodney Harrison knows the NYPD very well. I don't know how he would govern, because, again, whatever the agenda is by the mayor is kind of how you govern. But he would run the police department a lot different than Tish, and he's not an Eric Adams guy. So the way you've seen it run for the last 4 years, I would assume a Rodney Harrison would not allow. That's if Mamdani won. If Curtis won, you're definitely going to get someone that is liked or favored amongst the public and the police department. But like John and Eric say, and I think on the other show, it really doesn't matter who the police commissioner is. Normally, the rank and file and the mayor, the rank and file normally don't like them, because they want things their way. So they normally are at odds, whoever's in charge. I mean, I remember I was on a job, people hated Ray Kelly, yet today they herald him as like the king of policing. He was a god, but the people on the job, they hated him. So that's what I'm saying. It goes both ways. So usually it doesn't really matter who's in charge. It's always like Rage Against the Machine. They never like who's in charge. They just want things run. The rank and file just want to know they want to go to work, be left alone to do their job and go home. That's not what's happening today. So that's why they're really upset. But if somebody were to come in and actually just do that and leave them, they probably wouldn't. They might not like the mayor, but they would probably be like, oh, this is the greatest police commissioner of all time. So we have yet to see what happens if Rodney Harrison, got into the
I'm not sure if Rage Against the Machine is a good analogy, Sal, because they rage for the machine now,
Yeah, now they're raging against. Yeah, they were a Rage Against the Machine. Yeah. Now they are the machine. Anything for wokeism, right? That's basically what it turned into. Yeah. So I mean, I think we covered a lot of bases here, Marlon. You got anything else you want to add, or you want to tell the audience?
Yeah, no, that was it. Thanks for having me on. I'll see you guys tomorrow. I'm not sure what we're talking about yet tomorrow, but I'm sure it's going to be a lively discussion, as it normally is. So I will see you guys then.
Of course. And Marlon, thanks for coming on. And if there is another part to this, if there's anything else that comes out of this, you definitely got to come back, and maybe we break this down even more so, or we could get some documents up. I don't know, but I definitely want to continue on this topic if anything new arises, we'll say.
Yeah, definitely.
All right. Thanks a lot, Marlon. There you have it. Marlon will be on tomorrow. Rob Lukesh did say, not so sure Harrison could handle the job he likes to be for the cops, and don't think Mamdani would like that. And Joel Ramirez agrees with Rob. He says, I agree, Rob. I don't know. I'd be very interesting. Ronnie Harrison is a police commissioner. He's not a guy. He's well liked. So I don't know. There'd be a very. I got to see how that dynamic goes. But again, we saw that with De Blasio and Bratton. Bratton became police commissioner under De Blasio, and then he became hated. So with that all being said, let's turn to the daily segment everybody waits for, the producer's take with Jack.
I think bi-weekly would be the correct verbiage, but no, I'm going to come in hot today and say that Rodney Harrison would be a horrible choice for police commissioner. I mean, first of all, he was chief of department back in 2001, which is 3 years ago now at this point in time.
21,
he also spent time
2021.
2021, excuse me.
Right.
My apologies. But yeah, I mean, 3 years ago at this point, also has spent time in Long Island now. He's very out of touch with what's going on in New York City. And as such, bringing him back is a bad idea. Also, this is very reminiscent in nature of when an old school baseball or football coach has another job later in their career. And I'm thinking about, Pete Carroll with the Las Vegas Raiders, Terry Francona with the Cincinnati Reds, various other people in the sports world who come back for a job later in their career and just aren't prepared for it. Also, Rodney Harrison at this stage of his career, in my opinion, he knows a little bit too much about the police department, and having someone there who's very aware of his surroundings as it pertains to being at the top of the food chain is just not good for anyone. Also, I do believe that he and Mamdani would really clash heads. In addition to being very different ideologically speaking, there's a huge age gap that exists there, and Mamdani doesn't necessarily seem receptive to having someone that much older in a police department telling him how to run shop. That's just my own belief.
Marlon is back and he's in the chat now. He said, yeah, look at Bratton 2.0 versus Bratton 1.0. The thing is initially in the first couple of months, it would go over well because I think a lot of cops have a positive outlook on Rodney Harrison, and so does the community. But like Marlon's saying, same guy, different policy, same thing. I agree that Rodney Harrison may end up blowing up everyone's face only because we've seen this act before, and really. And you saw him in Suffolk County. He also left under a cloud of dust. I don't know what happened there. So Rodney, personally, I think he's a good guy. I just don't know. We all know what's going to happen if he runs a police.
No, in the twilight of his career, this is definitely the wrong choice. I would like to see Mamdani go external, potentially, for a police commissioner, someone from New Jersey, Long Island.
Oh, well, wait a minute.
Connecticut, someone who
we just saw that. We just saw that. You had Keyshawn Sewell.
Oh, I understand it. And people are going to
rubber stamping terminations like mine and hanging out with mob associates. I mean, we don't want this people that don't know what the hell's going on. And also, I think Coy Pegisa said it best. She came from Nassau County, which had like 12,000 cops. This has double that, if not a lot more. And you need somebody who's got to be, up to speed with. You have a huge police department, and you're gonna have everybody getting in your face, telling you, "Hey, Commissioner, we got to do that." The inside people that are they really run a department are gonna come to you to bamboozle you. So you need to learn the ins and outs. You got to be ready for this. And she was okay, but she's, again, they make her like she's like the second coming of not even Bill Bratton in the first term, but like Ray Kelly, who ran the department for 12 years. She was there for 18 months. We're still throwing rose petals for Keyshawn Sewell, who was the first out of 4 police commissioners that probably may be the worst 4-year span in the history of the New York City Police Department. The way it was run, the corruption scandals. People get on me for having Michael Dowd on. Take a look at the last 4 years and tell me what you think. You haven't seen the worst of the worst that's been going on in the police department? If you're an honest cop, how do you go to work every day? Look around you. It's chaos. Whether it's, from one police plaza, people running your precinct, the people in the street. Like, I don't know how you have to, you got to be taking like those yoga classes to try to stay sane. I don't know, So That's how I see it.
There's definitely reason to proceed with caution when operating with the approach that we need someone externally. Sal, if you want to open your window and look outside, you'll see reason to be extra cautious. I mean, Gregory Toney, who's the chief sheriff for the Broward County Sheriff's Office, was never more than a sergeant for the Corral Springs Police Department, a police department 1/10 of the size. He's been absolutely disastrous running a much bigger department. So I do understand your point in that regard. And there's evidence to prove that you're right and that claim has merit as well. But I also wanted to bring this up because there's been a lot of claims out there that the job has been defunded. Various aspects of it have lost public funding. And while it does have merit, people do need to take into consideration the facts here, right? The New York City Police Department operated with a $7.2 billion payroll in fiscal year 2024 with 65,900 employees roughly. If you do the math in this calculation that I have up on the screen, that would average out to about $109,000 per employee. Obviously, the scale is balanced by people who are making $300,000 a year to drive around chiefs, and then new recruits out of the academy who are rookies patrolling the projects for $32,000 a year. But anyway, to make the point here, the job hasn't necessarily been defunded. There's just been a massive implosion from within. More than 400 people made more money than the mayor last year, which is totally unacceptable. And the allocation of funds is much more problematic than anything else. If anyone defunded the job, it's the union heads who are constantly petitioning for raises during a down economy when the private sector is losing money and there's an outward migration in New York City. It's the people who are abusing the overtime system and stealing massive amounts of money consistently year after year. Because when you do the math and really look through the system, there are tons of repeat offenders who are constantly stealing money. So if you just buckle down on overtime, I know we put up Commissioner Tish's policy, but I'll believe it when I see it when it comes to the abuse of overtime, because it's been a widespread issue for so long. If you just reduce overtime, you're not giving these huge pay raises to people with 5 years and more experience in certain ranks, such as detective, sergeant, lieutenant, because those are the people who are really benefiting from the union contracts. It's not really helping the Peters and Pauls who are coming right out of the academy and making 35 grand in year one and 40 grand in year two, to the point where they can't even move out of mom and dad's house, let alone pay for gas money to get to and from work. So it's not the defunding of the police per se. You just need better monetization of the budget. And as such, you need better independent oversight. It's not about Mamdani versus Adams. Yes, they may not be the best managers of a police department. They may be making horrible appointments, but also you need more budgetary regulations to prevent the funds from being misused and mismanaged, because that's really the problem at play here. It's not about the police being defunded.
Mamdani is not a politician, he's an activist, so I don't know how he would govern. And Eric Adams is finished. It's really down to Mamdani and Curtis Sleever, in my opinion. And I think Curtis would definitely be more hands-on and have, like, the police commissioner actually, like Rob Lucas said, whoever it is, the mayor needs to let the PC run the job. The only good thing out of Michael Bloomberg, one of the few things he did, and whether you like him or not, with Ray Kelly ran the police department. There was never a Michael Bloomberg coming in saying and you don't want that, because Bloomberg didn't understand the job. Ray Kelly came from this culture. So whatever you could say about Ray Kelly, at least you'll know that you had a real cop that did the job forever. He was running the police department. Bloomberg has no idea about public safety. He only knows what the police commissioner would tell him. So he ran it more like an executive. I don't know how Mamdani would lead, because he's not a leader. He's an activist. Wow. Curtis, on the other hand, he does have a good idea. He has a good rapport with the police department, and whoever he puts in there would be, he's going to let that police commissioner do what he has to do. But Curtis is not like Eric Adams, but he is kind of a hands-on guy. And if he does find out anything, he's going to either cut off corruption right away, or if something happens, he'll be on the scene wanting answers, and he'll have a reaction immediately. He's not a guy who's going to sit around like Eric Adams. Oh, I don't know. We can't do this. We can do that. I mean, some of his reactions with the stuff he says comedic, I'd say, and others leave you with your head scratched. Like, what did Eric? What the mayor just said that, and that's who you got. You got a clown in office, and Curtis won't be that if he were to be elected. So I'm really hoping New York City sees through this BS, these Fugazi polls, this Fugazi advertisement, all this stuff. And if you vote with your heart, you'll know that Curtis is the right guy. Mamdani again is an activist.
1000%. Curtis would really be more hands-on in terms of managing the police department. He also has a much better fundamental and foundational understanding of the department because he's been with the Guardian Angels and has really seen it evolve over the past couple of decades. Mamdani doesn't have that life experience. So by that line of thought, Sliwa is a much better candidate just in terms of managing the NYPD. But if Mamdani did win the election, I envision him being a lot more hands-off for most things and kind of being a manager of the Chiefs and coaching them through certain situations. But if something really major does happen, if someone's shot at a building or there's a protest or something like that, then I think that Mamdani becomes a little bit more hands-on involved. He's definitely going to be someone who takes a back seat when it comes to managing all of the agencies, though. He's made that clear. He's talked about bringing in more experienced people around him. And just to clarify for anyone in the comments who's saying that I'm petitioning for a pay reduction or anything like that, no, the point I'm making is that all of these unions that have gotten new contracts during down economies where they get pay raises when money's leaving New York City, they're using fake money that doesn't exist to fund all of these salaries and pensions and things of that nature. So there's less funds for other things. And when you think about the logic here, we're increasing the department's budget and there's no more money really coming into the department. So it's a really big problem. And the money that we do have via taxpayer dollars, we're not spending correctly. So, I mean, if all of the people in the comments really did want to quote unquote fix the job and stop defunding the police, we could have a pay reduction for all of the people at higher ranks. There's logical problems with that. And I personally would not be in favor of it because they've worked their entire career for these types of jobs. They don't deserve a pay reduction. It's very expensive to live in the tri-state area. Some of them have families. I'm totally understanding of all the circumstances here. But the reality is they've been getting all of these huge, massive raises with overtime salaries baked into it. And I just don't know how this is financially or economically stable or sustainable, no matter how you twist it.
Yeah. Well, we'll see what they do. I don't know. Special Hagen said it best. He said Bloomberg was a better manager and was great at picking talent. I was no fan, but have to give the devil his due. And also with that, Marlon said at the same time, Ray Kelly left us with broken RMPs and didn't want to invest in the department, meaning they had broken vehicles all over the place, which is true. He didn't want to invest. I think he was trying to save the budget or whatever, which is one of the, that's one of the things the commissioner is supposed to do. Wink, wink, soccer mom, but I don't know what to say with that. It's like, because Kelly has his ups and downs. Of course, he gave us the disaster that we're still paying for with the abuse of stop, question, and frisk, which was not designed to be what it became. So his tenure, I always say, in the 12 years he was there, he gave you stability. You knew what you were getting every day. Ray Kelly, you came to work. Ray Kelly was there. You knew what you were going to get. Right now, I don't know what you're going to get. I don't know who's in charge. I don't know who's telling you to do what. The soccer mom says one thing, John Shell will say another. Then you got Kaz Dodger, who's really the de facto leader of the whole thing. Before that, you had Caban, you had Madrid. Yeah, it's been the wheels fell off this wagon a long time ago, and right now you just need to change. No matter who it is, you just need change. You need change. Hood Mayor NYC said Bloomberg does fantastic for what he knows and where he's from. commiserate New York City is.
So if I were to diagnose a moment in time when the upper echelon of the NYPD, and when I say upper echelon, I mean chief of department and commissioner, really started to get neutered by the mayor's office and the people in power in New York City, I would say James O'Neill was the guy who really bent a knee to Bill de Blasio. And you can really see that he was doing that because he was one of the few who served as both chief of department and then commissioner, which is problematic for the reasons I highlighted regarding Rodney Harrison. But O'Neill was someone who just did whatever Bill de Blasio said, and he came out with opinions to appease the public. The Daniel Pantaleo situation, he sided with the public. When riots are happening in the street, he sided with the public. When Bill de Blasio is at a protest, he sides with Bill de Blasio. So that was kind of a definitive point in time where everyone who aspired to be at the top of the department really looked at O'Neill, de Blasio, the relationship dynamic between the two, and said, okay, if I ever want to be a leader here, then I need to be a subservient type of a person. Ever since then, everyone who's been in a leadership position has just listened to the mayor. There's been no personal decision-making whatsoever. I don't care if it's the 4 clowns that Eric Adams rolled out, any of the previous people who served in the post prior to that. It's been a total disaster since then.
Yeah. And I say here, Marlon said they drive what's available to them that day in their precinct unit. And, I look, the last 4 years have been, I'd say, rough for the rank and file. And the leadership,
putting it lightly.
Yeah, the leadership is horrendous. Whoever this idiot puts in charge is worse than the last person that was there. This one included. I mean, she's completely clueless on other than you have to pick up the Daily News or the New York Post and read of how great the soccer mom is when it's anything but that. That just shows you everything you need to know in a nutshell. Here's someone who's politically connected because of their family, and that's basically why they got the job. So it's cronyism 101. And then they got there and don't know what they're doing. And Eric Adams doesn't care. He doesn't care about New Yorkers. He certainly doesn't care about a police department. This has been a train wreck that no matter what happens, it ends December 31st, thankfully. And you can only pray and hope for a new beginning starting in 2026, which I hope you get. I also want to point out that the casino bids that were in Manhattan lost in the little committee that they had. They had to approve it. They did not approve Times Square or any of that. So Eric Adams takes another L. The only ones that are really left now, the 2 licensing deals they're going to get with the casinos is going to December 6th is a hearing, and then December 31st, I believe they're going to hand out the license.
So let's touch on that briefly for a second, because Caesar's Palace was the company that put in the bid for the Manhattan casino specifically. Remember, there's different vendors for all of the different casinos. I believe that Hard Rock is affiliated with one in the Bronx. Steve Cohen is heavily involved in the one at Citi Field. More on that in a second. I'll give you an update on the Mets game. But yeah, so the bid for the casino in Times Square was put out by Caesar's Palace. And I believe this was a big part of the concern here. Look at the stock valuation of Caesar's just over the last year. September 2024, they're at about $40 per share. Now they're at $26 per share. And when you look at the 5-year trajectory of the stock market here with Caesars Entertainment, yeah, they had a nice peak on October 1st, 2021. But generally speaking, this is a company that's lost a lot of money. This is not something that New York City needs. Having a vendor putting up a casino that is on the verge of, I don't want to say bankruptcy, but bleeding out a lot more money. And they're trying to set up shop in an area where they're going to get a lot of competition. Broadway's nearby. A lot of tourists like to come and sightsee. They're going to walk right past that casino.
I think Caesars was in bed with Jay-Z, who's close friends with Mr. Adams and also the mob associate. So the whole, and they also had people like, I believe, allegedly Bo Dietl and Bill Bratton lobbying for them, all blew up in their face. So I know that 2 casinos guarantee get a license. The Resorts World, which was the scandal that Eric Adams was involved with that years ago, and Empire Casino, which has been around, one of the first that was put in the tri-state area or close to it. So one more license will be given, and it's going to be between the Bronx, which is Trump, That's the thing that Eric Adams was trying to, he got himself involved in, was Trump. That was one of the last things he did. So the Trump bid in Bronx, the ferry links, and then, of course, there's Steve Cohen, where Cohen is paying for the entire thing out of his own pocket or with another investor. So the city does not pay for the Cohen bid. So I believe that third license is going to end up going to Steve Cohen, who's worth $16 billion and could probably lobby the right people anyway just to get it. So that's where I think it's going. It'll be a total L for Eric Adams all the way around. He's not involved with Steve Cohen. So, the guy loses at every which way. And I don't know why he could be in the race. He's going to get crushed on November 5th. So
No, he definitely has no chance at this point in time. And now it's kind of pathetic to watch the real demise of Eric Adams on the campaign trail, because he's just saying what's on his mind and going on these terribly unhinged rants. He's also condemning the media for reporting that he's considering a job with the Trump administration when his own staff is leaking that information out there. So it looks extra sloppy on pretty much every end. But one more thing I wanted to touch on real quick in light of Charlie Kirk's death, because this is very important. So earlier today, a man was arrested who was threatening Mamdani. 44-year-old Jeremy Fistel of Plano, Texas, right outside Dallas, threatened the Queens Assemblyman on multiple occasions between June and July of this year in the form of voicemails and a written message. Fistel was arrested on September 11th. September 11th, obviously being the anniversary of 9/11, but sadly enough, also the day after Charlie Kirk's horrible assassination. Everyone out there watching, you're entitled to your opinions. Neither of us wants Zoran Mamdani to win the election. We've both publicly endorsed Curtis Sliwa. He's our top choice. But at the same time, you need to preface your comments with respect. And also, be careful about how you phrase things, because all it takes is one wackadoodle sitting at home to misinterpret what you're saying to go out and justify their own violence the same way that Tyler Robinson did with Charlie Kirk. So just be careful of the rhetoric, because all of these things about city-owned grocery stores like Publix is going to be merging with Whole Foods, or rent stabilization, like it's going to lead to thousands of foreclosures all across the city. I know what Mamdani has said. I know what he's promised. But just be careful in terms of your own analyzations of his policies and then the judgments that you're forming based off of that. That's all I'm going to say.
yeah, I definitely would second that. I guess we'll try to wrap this up now.
So good news out of Citi Field. I know that we've talked about a lot of things, been critical, broken down some things that were a little bit more negative, including Frankie Palaguachi's court case. But I have good news to report for Mets fans, where the Mets are leading the Padres 5-1 in the rubber match of a 3-game set out at Citi Field. The game is going on right now. Brandon Nimmo just hit a 3-run shot. Pete Alonso, a 450 solo home run to dead center field earlier. And then Jonah Tung, the guy who did not even last in an inning in his last start, 8 strikeouts over 5 frames against a very potent Padres lineup. Watch out, guys.
Yeah. Also, Juan Soto he has his 100th RBI. Guy has 41 home runs and 100 RBIs a few months ago. It was the end of the world. By the way, the Marlins only 6 games behind the Mets. How about that one? They were like 15 games behind at one point. So with all that being said, there's a lot to hold, to take in with that. But I hope everybody got a educational, there with everything. You got a little bit of educated with the Marlon on and understand how this whole system works. So, let's go Mets. If you can, watch on replay the executive perspective from yesterday. I was watching it with Rob and Ron. They had Commissioner O'Connor on. It was very, very informative to listen to the commissioner speak. He was a former assistant commissioner and learn about everything he dealt with on the job. It was pretty good episode. Also, check out on replay the 10-Foot Tavern. That's on Tuesdays at 7:05 or 19:05. And, of course, tomorrow morning, 8:05 live, the Finest Unfiltered, John, Eric, and Marlon. With that being said, I hope everybody has a good weekend. Stay positive. Stay focused. Keep your faith. That's number one. Always pray to God. And with that, we'll see what the Mets do for the weekend. Oh, and highlight tomorrow at 7 o'clock, ESPN 3. the Chargers are playing. My team is playing. So check that out, or worldhighlightleague.com. So that being said, I'm going to sign off from today, sunny South Florida, because once again, as you know, it's a sunny place for shady people.
So this is a biblical moment. You know, when Jesus was on the cross, he said, God, forgive them, for they know not what they do. All these Negroes who are asking me to step down, God, forgive them. Are you stupid?